welcome back to Food Prep Guide. I don't know about you, but I have been learning a lot lately about things that are truly helpful in emergency type situations versus what we think we might need that turns out to maybe not be quite as useful. This video is just inspired by what has been going on with Hurricane Helene and the devastation that has been left in its path. I know it's not much consolation, but if you have been affected, please know that we are praying for you on a daily basis for help to be sent your way and supplies and volunteers, for evil to be held at bay, and for rescue workers and just all of that. We are praying for you and our hearts go out to you. If I know that a lot of us have some sort of connection, whether it be a family or a friend of a friend, an acquaintance, a cousin, in that region, that and we're hearing firsthand accounts either directly from that person or through social media. And one of the things that is that has kind of gotten my attention is people posting and talking about things that they needed the most of. And I've got some notes here. I have been like gleaning as much as I can from this and writing down notes about kind of what maybe I might be forgetting in our own family's emergency preparedness plan. I think it is wise to have an emergency preparedness plan, not because we think the world is ending and not because we're preparing for the zombie apocalypse or anything like that, but because emergencies happen. And most of the time they happen when we are not planning for them. We don't know that they're going to be happening. And so whether it be job loss or whether it be an earthquake or a hurricane, a tornado, something like that, it is wise to have a plan together. So our family does have a plan, but what I have been gathering from this devastation and the victims of Hurricane Helene is the items in particular that I have heard mentioned that they have been needing the most, and some of them were really surprising to me. So today I want to bring you a video on what I am kind of gathering as the 10 kind of most commonly forgotten emergency items, like preps and items that we can have on hand for emergencies that we don't typically think about. Now, there are countless videos out there from far knowledgeable people than I am about preparing food, water, medicine, electricity, that kind of thing. And those are your basics, you know, shelter, water, food. So I'm not addressing any of that in this video. We're not going to be talking about just the staples and the necessities that I think everyone knows about, right? Shelter, food, water, medication. We're not going to talk about that. I want to get very specific about items that I am hearing from people that have been the most useful. If that interests you, let's get started. Welcome to Food Prep Guide. My name is Jordan. I'm a homeschooling mom to 3, living on 3 beautiful acres with my wonderful husband. A health crisis forced our family to change the way we think about food. Unfortunately, it also put us in financial hardship. Thankfully, the solution to both challenges was the same: to live off the land as much as possible. For us, that means growing a garden, preserving the harvest, raising chickens, and cooking from scratch. It's definitely a family affair. And friends, too. Meet Stacy, researcher, author, and lifelong learner. She entered the world of food preservation in the crazy days of 2020. She joined a gleaning co-op, and a local grocer offered her clearance produce in bulk, and so the adventure began. Together, we're reclaiming the old ways of food stewardship and teaching them to the next generation. If there's one thing you should know about us, it's that we love Jesus and seek to steward his blessings wisely. Our table always has room for one more, so y'all come join us. Okay, so item number 1 of the 10 items is a manual can opener. It seems obvious, but everything is electric these days. Everything's like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and, you know, plug into a wall outlet. And that's a lot of us have those types of can openers. So a manual can opener is extremely important for being able to open the canned goods that either you have or, like in this case, that other people are bringing in from the outside. Now, a lot of people who are the volunteers who are bringing in canned food items, they are also bringing in manual can openers. But having that in your house just means you don't have to depend on someone else to bring it to you. So if you don't have a manual can opener, I highly recommend getting one. Item number 2 is plastic sheeting like tarps and zip ties. Now here on our property, I can't tell you how many zip ties and tarps we have and use. They are just incredibly helpful for making very quick repairs. Like we raise animals, and if a fence breaks, we need to repair it quickly. Even if it's during a weekday and we don't have the time to do that, we need a temporary but a quick and still somewhat strong fix that we can put into place. And then when we have time on the weekend or have time, a couple weeks from then we can do a more permanent fix. And so zip ties, we have used zip ties in all sorts of ways on our property. Same thing with tarps. They are so easy and helpful to have on hand to throw up and create a shelter if you need it. A shelter for the chickens when a big storm is coming, or in the heat of summer, it's too hot for them to be in their coop. We will throw up a tarp with some string and just tarp and provide some shade for them. But throwing up some quick shade when it is extremely hot outside, we have used tarps in the garden. But in an emergency situation, if you are in a situation where you have a hole in your roof, or the roof is not there anymore, or your whole house is gone, it just breaks my heart to even think about that and to even say that out loud. Okay, sorry about that. I got a little bit emotional. My heart is truly breaking for people right now. But tarps and zip ties and string, I've been hearing that if people could just have a dry spot with a wind break or a rain break, somewhere where they could get dry and out of the wind, and tarps and zip ties and string can do that for you. So having a stock of those on hand would be incredibly useful. Okay, item number 3 is going to be some sort of multi-tool knife. I know a lot of men, especially the men in my life, every one of them carries a multi-tool. Even my little boys, they're already getting used to having a multi-tool clipped to their belt loops. But a women, I don't think is quite as common for that. And there are a lot of situations that we could be in as women where we don't have our husband or our father or our brother or whoever, that man is in our life that might have that multi-tool or might have that knife strapped to his belt. Where they wouldn't be with us at the time. And so I think having a multi-tool on hand is something that is common, but also it can sometimes be the most common things that get forgotten because we don't prepare for them ahead of time because we're just so used to them. And a multi-tool, I think, kind of falls into that category, but you can do a whole lot with a simple multi-tool at your disposal. So item number 4 is duct tape. I feel like this is another one of those things that's kind of like common sense, but there are just so many scenarios that I am hearing about where if they could just patch something, or if they could just mend some kind of tear or some kind of rip, or even fashion a water vessel out of some found materials that they could patch up with some duct tape. There's just so many uses for duct tape. I know it's kind of like a joke about how we joke. I know in my family we joke about duct tape and WD-40. If you've got duct tape and WD-40, you can fix anything. But just having plenty of duct tape on hand was probably pretty important for emergencies too. Number 5 is water purification tablets. Or water filter bottles. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about food, water, shelter, that kind of thing, but water purification tablets right now are fairly inexpensive. You can pretty good get a decent sized stock of it without having to spend a ton of money, and that will just allow you to really take advantage of whatever water is around you. But obviously, be sure to read the manufacturer's instructions for what can and can't be filtered, for what can and can't be treated. Go by what they say, and certainly not any tips from me on that. So just water purification tablets or water filter bottles, have those on hand for emergencies. Number 6, and this is a huge one that I am seeing, especially in the North Carolina and East Tennessee regions, is local maps. We are so used today to pulling up the Google Maps on our phone, or some other kind of map app on our phones, and being able to use GPS to get where we need to go, to find things, to find people, to find locations. And most of that is probably not going to be available in an emergency type situation when either your phone doesn't work or your battery has died, you have no way of charging it, um, and everyone else around you is in the same situation, and so no one has access to GPS. In a lot of emergency situations, the cell tower like antennas are, what's the word I'm looking for? Like broken. They're damaged. They're messed up. So a lot of times, even if you do have a phone that is charged, you do still have battery life, you still can't access those apps. So having paper maps for your local region, and not just state, but down to the very town that you live in, and having detailed maps that you can really guide you to where you need to go in an emergency type situation if you're trying to get to a relative's house or a meetup point. That's another thing that should be a part of every preparedness plan, is having a meetup location. We all lead busy lives, and most of the time in a single family, those people are all in different locations on any given moment, with work, with school, with errands, all of that kind of thing. So having a meetup location that you have talked about before an emergency happens with your family, and then you can use that paper map that you have of your local area to get you to that meetup point, is another thing that's pretty important, because one of the things that is the most devastating that I have seen come out of this is the lack of communication, where people they can't get out and nobody can get in, and they can't even communicate to let people know that there is a need for help in that area. So having a meetup location, if you're able-bodied and able to get to that point, is going to be important when you're not able to communicate with people at that moment during the emergency. Okay, so number 7 is going to be some sort of either solar-powered flashlight, or I'm going to say flashlight and radio combined, because they have plenty of products nowadays that are both a radio and a flashlight in one, and they can either be hand cranked or solar powered, and you don't need a separate solar panel system. The solar panel is built into the device. So I highly recommend getting one of those weather radio flashlight combinations that don't need batteries, that don't need charging. Again, that's going to help with communication. Even though it's not going to help with you communicating outward, it's going to help with you receiving information from the community and being able to kind of understand what just happened here, what are my options moving forward. The communication is just so key, and that's just a huge lesson that is coming out of that region at this time. So some kind of solar-powered flashlight radio combination. Number 8 is going to be emergency Mylar blankets. The Mylar blankets are a dime a dozen. Well, I should back up. They were when I bought them like 5 years ago, but I don't know what the price is now. But typically, your Mylar blankets, the emergency Mylar blankets, are going to be extremely inexpensive. You can order them today on Amazon or Walmart or wherever you shop, and you can use them for a lot more than just wrapping up in a blanket. A lot of your solar ovens are actually some sort of material like cardboard that just has an ultra reflective coating on it, and you can, in a pinch, you can use a Mylar blanket like that. Now, the details of all that is beyond the scope of this video, but that is something that you might want to look into if you are interested. Item number 9 is garbage bags. The sanitation issues that are coming out of that region are, along with everything else, is devastating. And just having a lot of garbage bags on hand for all sorts of waste. And I'm not, we can all know what kind of waste we're talking about. And even just cleaning up, as the waters have receded, there is so much left over. And just having garbage bags at your disposal is I think would be pretty important in that kind of situation for keeping things as sanitary as possible. Of course, they're not going to be super sanitary, but we can only do what we can do. And having garbage bags on hand could really help in that kind of situation. And last but not least is work gloves. Not your like rubber latex gloves, but like your leather, your sewn padded hand. I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but the work gloves that have like an extra patch right here to cushion your hand when you're picking up sharp objects and heavy objects, metal objects, things that could easily cut you. In this kind of situation, an injury that could be just a simple slice on the hand can turn into something very dangerous. And work gloves is something that allows you to work in an area that is not ideal, that might be covered in debris, that might be covered in very unsanitary items, and being able to still work in that environment in a somewhat protected way. You know, it's just a simple thing with work gloves on your hand, a simple, inexpensive item that we can pick up and have on hand, I think is something that is going to be important, and that is something that I have heard as something that's just something we don't really think about, but has been incredibly useful in this type of situation. Okay, y'all, I hope that was helpful to you, and please remember, to everyone who has been affected, we are praying for you diligently. I hope that was helpful, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.